Good, happy Tuesday evening. I'm Riley King, and welcome to Politics with Riley King. Let's begin. First up, new poll. Biden leads Sanders, Warren tied for second among New Hampshire Democratic primary voters. CNN poll also shows Granite State Republicans strongly support Trump. A second New Hampshire poll in 2 days show Vice President Joe Biden still leading the Democratic presidential field in the Granite State, but Senator Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are close behind, with the margin of error for the top spot. The CNN poll conducted by the University of New Hampshire July 8th to the 15th shows Biden with the support of 24% of likely first in the nation Democratic primary voters, followed by Warren and Sanders, each at 19%. The margin of error was 5% among the 386 likely 2020 Democratic primary voters surveyed, meaning the race is a staccato three-way tie. Mayor Pete Buttigieg was in fourth place at 10%, followed by Senator Kamala Harris at 9%. No other candidates exceeds 2%. On the Republican side, likely voters in that party's presidential primary chose President Donald Trump over the lone GOP challenger, former Massachusetts Governor William Weld, by an overwhelming margin. Citing late son's struggle with opiate addiction, Rep. Peter Lejman endorses Cory Booker. 10-term lawmaker backs New Jersey Senator presidential hopefuls as proven leader on substance abuse, mental health crisis. Veteran State Rep. Peter Lejman of Peterborough on Tuesday cited his late son's struggle with opiate addiction in endorsing New Jersey Senator Cory Booker's bid for the presidency. Lejman, serving in his 10th term in New Hampshire House, praised fellow Democrat Booker's support for criminal justice reform and his plan to cut mandatory minimum sentence for non-violent drug offenders in making the endorsement. Sununu criticized toxic offenses rhetoric emanating from Washington. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
New Hampshire's governor is weighing in on controversy in Washington, D.C. over tweets from President Trump that some are calling racist. Thanks for joining us. I'm Erin Falo. As House Democrats prepare a resolution condemning the president's comments, News 9 asked Republican Governor Chris Sununu for his thoughts.
You know, the constant rhetoric coming out of Washington, D.C., it's toxic and it's offensive. And frankly, I think all of the American people are just fed up with it. Everything coming out of Washington lately is offensive. And I think everyone in Washington needs to really take a look at what the American people are willing to tolerate. And this isn't it. This isn't it at any level.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Harris's new plan to cut prescription drug costs promotes 2 New Hampshire endorsements. Senator Kamala Harris's plan to run in what she views as predatory practices of pharmaceutical companies and reduce out-of-pocket prescription drug costs has earned her 2 New Hampshire endorsements. New Hampshire health care advocates praise Biden's new plan to expand Obamacare. Former Vice President Joe Biden's plan to expand the Affordable Care Act with new federal subsidies is being praised by several healthcare experts as well as some of his supporters who are involved in the healthcare field. Buyback program launched to end use of lead tackle that kills loons. Banned fishing tackle can be turned in for store credit. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tim Callery.
They may not be the state bird, but loons are just as much a part of New Hampshire as the White Mountains or presidential primaries.
I think if you hear a loon calling, in the evening when you're on the lake, just once, when you're 8 years old, you'll remember it the rest of your life.
But with just a little more than 300 pairs living here, the population has taken a hit, mostly because of fishing tackle made of lead.
It's, the number one cause of mortality that we see in the New Hampshire loon population. If a loon ingests lead tackle, it's invariably going to cause lead poisoning in the loon, and as far as we know, will kill it within 2 to 4 weeks.
Legislation was passed back in 2016 to prevent that.
Lead tackle, sinkers and jigs, 1 ounce or less. There's a ban on sale and freshwater use in New Hampshire. That's the toughest standard in the nation.
But officials have found they are still being used. So the Loon Preservation Committee is taking things a step further through a tackle buyback program. AJ's Bait and Tackle in Meredith is one of 9 locations where people can return it for a voucher.
You fill out the name and address, and it's valued at $10 for anything in the store.
Loons are wildlife species where we can really make a difference.
And for a list of the 9 locations participating in this program, you can head over to our website and mobile app. Reporting in Center Harbor, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Commission set up to attract younger workers to New Hampshire. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
Using 4 pens, Governor Sununu established a commission to look for ways to keep young service program workers like AmeriCorps in New Hampshire after they finish their service. The governor wants to make sure the commission reaches out to the people who will have a hand in making sure that happens.
Work directly with, not just talk about, but really sit down with the community colleges, the universities, the high schools, our education systems to make sure that we are integrating as we should.
One of the programs bringing young people to New Hampshire is City Year, an AmeriCorps program. Managers say there is a great need for volunteers, and if there are increased benefits and options, volunteers could be convinced to stay in the Granite State.
They struggle with finding jobs right out of college, so this is a great opportunity for them to come to a state that has really good employment and great employers.
The commission will also look at some of the problems that keep young people from settling in New Hampshire and becoming part of the workforce. Some of those problems may take years wants to resolve.
Probably the biggest obstacle is housing and the cost of housing for young folks, especially if they're serving in national service. They're receiving a small stipend.
The commission is scheduled to report on November 1st. The governor says that'll give lawmakers enough time to take a look at those recommendations and possibly pass legislation designed to implement some of them. Reporting live outside the State House in Concord, Ray Brewer, WMUR News Now.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. House condemns Trump's Twitter attacks against Congresswoman. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce for more on this. And Mary, we know House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to put a resolution on the floor today to condemn the president's remarks.
Yeah, George, House Democrats are trying to send a very clear message here. They do plan to vote tonight on this resolution that, quote, strongly condemns President Trump's racist comments, saying they have, quote, legitimized and increased fear and hatred of new Americans and people of color. Now, this is largely a symbolic move, and while Republicans, some say the Democrats here are simply playing politics, Democrats say they feel the need to send that strong message and that they are trying to get Republicans to go on the record here, to force them to have to say where they stand on the president's remarks.
Yeah, Republicans have not wanted to speak out on this at all.
George, we have reached out to every single Republican in Congress, and so far the majority of them still are not commenting. And those who are offering a pretty muted response. Just a handful of Republicans here on the Hill have been willing to condemn the president's remarks. Even fewer are calling them racist. Tim Scott, the party's only African-American in the Senate, called them unacceptable and racially offensive. Mitt Romney says they are destructive and dangerous. But Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, George, still has not said a word about the president's remarks. Now, that is expected to change at his press conference here this afternoon. But, George, this just goes to show how far this Republican Party has now lined up behind the president and how loath they are to cross him.
It is his party. Mary Bruce, thanks very much.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And just in House votes 240 to 187 to approve resolution condemning President Trump's Twitter attack against Congresswoman. And we will keep you updated on that new information. And that does it for this Tuesday evening edition of Politics with Riley King. I hope you all enjoyed this Tuesday evening edition of Politics with Riley King. And I'll see you back here tomorrow night for another edition of Politics with Riley King. Good night, everyone, and bye.